Have you ever hit a roadblock in your make.com scenario because your app isn't supported? The secret weapon you're looking for is webhooks. Stick around and I'll show you exactly how to make them work for you. I'm David and let's get right into it. So, what are webhooks? Why are they so important? And how to use them in Make to connect the apps that you can't connect natively. So the first question is, okay, David, I get it. Webhooks are probably good for my business, but what is it actually? And if you have any software engineering background or technology background, you may actually be familiar with webhooks, but for a lot of people, it is something that is entirely new. And that's why I will try to explain it as simply as possible. Now, in a scenario where we use webhooks, there are multiple parties in play. The first party would be the webhook. The second party would be an application that you use, let's say Elementor forms. And the third party would be Make or some other platform that is receiving the data from webhook. Now, if I explain it on a real life example, let's say webhook is a physical address somewhere in the UK or in the US. Now, you have a form that is filled out in a center somewhere in London, and when a new person comes in and fills out the form, you dispatch a courier, which is an HTTP request that takes the form and brings it to the address that was specified in the beginning, hands over the form, and now you have the form in the address in your processing center to do anything that you need with it. So when we take this anecdote to the online world, you have a URL, then you have a form, or it can be any other service that's able to send information outside. And when an action happens, the information is sent over to Make or to some other tool, and then you can parse the data, you can process it, you can start some other actions based on it. And as you may see, it's basically the principle of how Make works. Because every time you're doing a scenario in Make, it has some trigger event, and this trigger event unless it's a scenario that runs at a specific time, this trigger is based on a webhook. It's just not called like that because it's done on a background. But webhook is a way how to get the initial data into Make. Now, a lot of the applications, a lot of the scenarios that you will want to do have a native app that handles this webhook for you. So you don't need to deal with that. And Make is great, and they're always adding more and more apps. But we live in a world where we use so many services, and the number of services we're using is developing faster than it's possible to add new apps. So you will encounter a lot of the times, and from my experience, it's almost something like 50% of the times when you're trying to automate something, you're trying to create a scenario, but there isn't a native app for it in Make. And this is really where webhooks come in, and that's why they're useful, because as long as the application has some sort of webhook, which often, the applications, even if they don't have native Make app, they will have a webhook support. Then you can send all the information you need to Make and create your scenarios based around that. So now I will go into how to use webhook. I will use it on a very simple example of actually getting a information from Elementor contact form and transferring it to Make. But feel free to reach out in the comments and write me ideas of services that you had a problem with, integrating into Make, and then I can look into it and create a tailored video for you regarding how to connect them using the webhooks. So I've created a new scenario here in Make. I will move myself here so you can see the whole screen. And firstly, we need to choose the initial module. And now what you write in is webhook, obviously. And here you have two triggers, and we're looking for triggers here as we want to have webhook as a starter for our scenarios. There's custom mailhook and there's custom webhook. This video will be focused on the custom webhook, but just to give you a bit more of context, custom mailhooks are also a very useful tool because they can start actions based on an incoming email to some email inbox. So for instance, let's say there are two ways that new leads contact you, either through an email that you have on your website or through a contact form. You would use the webhook to, get the data from the contact form, but you can't use it when people send you inquiry to your general email because, well, it's an email. And that's precisely when you would use the custom mailhook, and you can again parse the data out of the email, move it into your CRM, send a follow-up sequence, and work with the lead that you get. So in this instance, we choose custom webhook. And now, of course, I could choose from webhooks I already have, but when you're creating a new scenario, most likely you will be creating a new webhook that you need. So in this case, you will choose add, and let's name our webhook. And let me be clear. If you will do a lot of automations with Make, you will create a lot of webhooks. And after a bit of time, it will be really difficult to, be able to know what webhooks are connected to what scenarios if you don't name them properly. So this is your unique chance to name them properly and really use it. In this case, I'll name it something simple like webhooks YouTube explanation. So I know what to do with it after. This is the only mandatory field in this setup. There is second field, IP restrictions, and this is really something you would use for security. So for instance, if you only want a certain app to be able to send information to that webhook, you would have the option to IP restrict it to this specific app. However, from my own experience, most of the times you will not need it. To be honest, I haven't used it single time. It's more for enterprise solutions, I suppose. In your day-to-day life, you will probably not use this field. So just choose the name that makes sense to you, that you can back to, click on save. And now the webhook is being created. And now you got the URL that you can copy to clipboard. And really this is the address that I was talking about in the beginning. So now we have the URL that looks something like this, and this is the address that all the post that is sent to this address will go to. So now if I have Elementor, or if I have Postman, which is a tool for testing HTTP and other requests, or any other tool really that can send out these requests, which, to be honest, most of the online services that you use can. If they send a piece of data or some data bundle to this address, now the postman will take it and he will deliver it to this address, to this end destination, which is here in Make. Okay, so we have the webhook, and now let's create a form in Elementor. So let's use the most basic form option that we have. I'll also try to move this so everything is visible for you. And we can change the fields, I guess, name, email, and change it to first and last name. So we want both of them. We want some message. Tell us more. Tell us any information that will be useful for us to help you. Okay, so we have the contact form set up, and really the form fields, this is completely up to you. You can choose the fields that you like. And as you see, there's a lot of options that you can choose. And really what we're looking for is this actions after submit. And here we want to find webhook. Now, don't get me wrong. This is just a testing scenario of where you can use webhooks. This is just one of the use cases, and there's thousands of them. And for any given service, the way to get the webhook will be different. So in that case, you will need to do a bit of your own research. Usually, simple search, something like Elementor webhook setup will help you. Usually the tool will have some information on where to find the webhook, but you will need to do this part on your own. If you don't know how, send me the specific service in the comment and I can do a guide about it like here. So add action, webhook. And now what happened is that we have a new kind of drop down menu here, webhook. And the only thing that we need to really do now is copy this address, put it here, and let's publish the page. Let's view it. It's really a page only with the contact form. And in this case, let's try it out. And I will show you what happens in a bit. Hello. Okay. Now, let's run this module. So, we're making sure that it's receiving the data. We click on send. Your submission was successful. And here we go. So we got some basic information. We got the contact form information. We also got the date. We got the time. We got the page URL, user agent, the IP, and some other information such as form ID, form name, etc. So now you have this data, and really you have unlimited possibilities of what you can do with it. What I would probably do is try to get it to Google Sheets. So I would transfer the data that I got into contact form into some sort of CRM, into some sort of database. So the most easy one would be Google Sheets or something like Airtable, ClickUp, Monday.com, really anything that you're using. Let's try it with Google Sheets just so I can demonstrate the concept. So you will want to add a new row. Okay, so what I just did is create this new spreadsheet, and let's say there is multiple things we want to track. So we want to track first and last name of the lead. We want to also track the email. We want to track the message. We want to track the date, submission date, and let's say we want to track the incoming URL, which is something that's very helpful for you if you want to work with the data after, and if you want to, for instance, track from which blog posts or which sub pages on your website you have most customers coming from. So let's say in a very simple setup, these are the variables that I would track. And now let's go back in here. You have to create your connection. If you're using Make for some time, you probably already have connection to Google Sheets. You can really search any method that works for you. In this case, I'll use the select from all. So select from all, ID finder. Let's search for the name, and it didn't give us the ID, and that's because I'm in a wrong account. Let's try it again, and now we should get the ID for the spreadsheet we're looking for. Okay, great. Sheet name. This is the first sheet, sheet 1. Table contains a header. Yes, that's the first row that, by the way, I can separate. And okay, now the first and last name, that's this value, email, message. And now when it comes to the date, you need to make sure that it's formatted properly. Now if you hover over any of these data that you got, you will see what the data type is. So for all of those, it is actually a text. So you can't just work with the data right out of the bat. You need to convert the text, which is February 17th, 2025, into a format that Make can use. And I will not go into the details right now, because when you're creating some scenarios, you really need to have the end goal and all the context in mind. So in this scenario, we're creating webhook. It will take the information from the form and send it somewhere further. And the webhook submissions are almost instant. The webhook submission will come in maximum of a few seconds after your lead submits the form. So actually you don't need to parse this data. What I would just use is the native function of Make, and let's just use the now function, which takes the current date and time. And now we only want date, really, we don't care for anything else, so we use the format date function to format the date. The first input is the now variable, and then the second input, which you can't see now, is the format that we want. So I will use year, month, day, just for simplicity, and parentheses. Okay, and the last thing is the incoming URL, which again you will get very easily. It's the page URL in this case. Okay, let's save it. And now everything should work as expected. So let's try sending one more webhook and see what happens. So let's run it. Let's fill it in one more. Let's choose a different email. Is this working? Send. And here we go. I would probably need to format this table a bit better so all the data is visible. but this is essentially what you would want to go for. So you get the first and last name, you get the email, you get the message, you get the submission date, you get the incoming URL, and now you can stack other apps on top of it. So for instance, you can add email. You can, not just add it to Google Sheets, but add it to ClickUp. You can use Twilio and send them a confirming SMS. Really, you can send it through Slack to your teammates who will then, or to your sales team who will then call up the leads. Really, here you have unlimited possibilities what you can do with it. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you have any automations that you would like to see how to do in Make, let me know in the comments and I will try to get to them as soon as possible.